Good morning, Bucknutters. It is Tuesday, October 14th, 2025. I am Dan Rubin. This is the Bucknuts Morning 5 and Change, joined by Mark Porter and Garrick Hodge. Got a great show for you today. There's been commitments, there's been firings, there's been video, and we've got it all. Been a very interesting few days in the college football landscape. Thankfully, none of it concerning your Buckeyes. So just this podcast covers the national champions. We are ranked number one. Good to be king. What happens when you're king? Well, when you offer people, they tend to flip, especially if they're offensive linemen from the state of Ohio, which brings us to Landry Brede from Menor, previously committed to North Carolina State. Sure, there's some tears being shed in the Wolfpack staff offices today or yesterday when this happened. He was a super high priority for NC State. Ohio State, not giving too much care for the Wolfpack feelings, has flipped Mr. Breed. Bring us up on what they're getting, how this all went down, Garrick, and then Mark, as he's wont to do, will show us exactly what we're getting on video.
Yeah, regarding Landry, just need to put out a disclaimer that in-state flips to Ohio State are not as easy as they used to be. And I know all you guys can attest to that. 5 years ago, if Ohio State wanted someone committed to North Carolina State, it was usually over in a matter of minutes. It doesn't really go that way anymore for a number of reasons, but we all know the main one, right?
Your account.
Was checking in a lot with Landry Breed. They offered him, of course, in early September. Really loved what they saw in his early senior film. And Landry had been on the Buckeyes radar for a long time. They've taken a look at him, they've evaluated him, and they were finally ready to pull the trigger in September. And when that happened, I, like everyone else, thought he was on immediate flip watch and did some digging. And over the next month or so, I really, truly think it was 50-50, guys. Like Landry's his heartstrings were all over the place. He felt a lot of loyalty to North Carolina State that took a chance on him. Really went all out for him, valued him as a priority in their 2026 class, made a financial commitment to do so, right? But Landry, he's from Ohio, grew up rooting for Ohio State, and I don't think it hurts that there is some smoke regarding Aaron Thomas, the Ohio State offensive tackle commit with Florida State and a few others right now. We'll see. Again, that's a situation to monitor. We don't have anything definitive, but I don't think that it hurts that he may be sniffing around and that may be another spot that Landry could fill in theoretically, right? In terms of what they're getting a true bulldog. And the game I saw him at, I went up to mentor a few weeks ago. They're also getting a hell of a tight end. I'm kidding. But they used him on an offensive lineman screen, and he rumbled for about 10 yards. And I talked with him post-game, and he was so mad at himself that he didn't get in the end zone, and that was honestly my favorite part of the interview. But they're getting a guy that can play all five positions, I think, at the next level. He might be better as an interior lineman. We'll see. That's more of a Mark question than I'll be able to answer. But, I think they value him as a guy, as a swing lineman, for lack of a better term. They're going to try him out at all five. They're going to find the best spot for him. He's a great offensive tackle in high school right now, plays for a tremendous program. Mentor always produces great players up there. And I would be pretty excited about it. I know, some people see 3 stars and they go, well, we don't take 3 stars at Ohio State. Well, sometimes they develop into pretty damn good players. And I think Landry has the potential to do that. And, hell of a win for Tyler Bowen, because I know some people won't get all excited about this recruitment because they see a guy like him, like, oh, North Carolina State, like we said at the top of the mention of Landry Breed. We don't compete with North Carolina State. Yep. But it is not as easy as it used to be to secure these late flips from Ohioans. And heck of a job to Tyler Bowen. He made Landry Breed a priority in the last few weeks, really went after it, got it done, pulled at the heartstrings a little bit, got him to stay home. And, yeah, I'd be excited about what his future could be with the Buckeyes.
Mark, you've been following Landry since he was in the 3rd grade. I'm just kidding, slightly. The big question was his size to you. So bring us up to speed before we kick the video in here and your experience seeing him. Intimately some people on NC State staff, so you probably got some of those tears communicated to you digitally. So bring us up to speed on where you are on him, how he fits in with the rest of the mix, and their clear focus on locking down Ohio offensive linemen. And then we'll get to the video.
Yeah, there's a lot to touch on. He did get bigger from sophomore to junior year, meaning height-wise. There's definitely a growth spurt there where when you see him now, he's 6'5", or where I think a year ago I might have thought he was more in the true 6'3" category. I really think that you touched on it where he may have felt like he was put off last year and not offered an Ohio State offer, and then someone else made him feel like the man. That's really the main crux of the story. But I really think that if Maxwell Riley and Landry Brede switched jerseys and switched playing teams on Friday night, that the only people would know that happened were probably the parents, by subtle body movements that are probably real, but they're really close to the same player. And I really have a feeling that when Ohio State did their evaluations last year, that it was a 50-50 or a 60-40 where, hey, the line's going to be drawn here because we have enough, and he was maybe one or two men on the other side of that line. It wasn't some like, oh, he's a 3-star and there's a big drop. Ask Jake Cook how that 3-star stuff works out or whatever. Like he has this black stripe removed almost immediately, and he was an afterthought or the last lineman in the class type of thing. So don't let that type of thinking be your evaluation on the player. That's a cheap evaluation to think, well, he's the last one we took, so he must not be as good as the others. He's on par with the others, I assure you. Last year, rewind the podcast where I was saying, hey, we should be talking about him as one of the big 4 or big 5 guys in the class. And the line was just drawn where Ohio State with Guthrie and Greer and Maxwell Riley and national guys. It just didn't work out. So I'm happy to see that it did. And like I said, Maxwell Riley and him have the same type of body, same type of length. The tackle discussion is what I want to kind of get into. Like, is he a guard or is he a tackle? Nobody's anything. These labels really don't hit you until you're in college. And I think Dwayne Long used to say this, keep bringing in all tackles. That's the more valuable trait, the longer arms. And if you, like people say, well, Mark, is he going to go to guard? Well, we bring in all tackles. Somebody's going to guard. Not all of them. When you bring in Sam Greer's and some of these other guys, these other tackles are going to have to kick down, and they're going to be called guards, but they have tackle bodies. You're going to see with Landry's feet, he can pull from tackle. He's got great feet. They give him a crack at tight end, just, exaggerate that he can move around a little bit. And I know that's a novelty at tight end, but it expresses, what type of an athlete he is in space and what he can do. So I think they all come in with this tackle skill set. A true guard, to me, is like a 340-pound, just pudgy cheeks, kind of pudgy in the belly.
Fire hydrant.
Yeah, he kind of knows that, I'm not going to go out there and chase down these linebackers or DBs coming off the edge. I just don't have the feet, but I'm going to line up with you and just power you out of a phone booth and, just that type of guy. Tegra Shabula kind of came off as that kind of kid coming out of high school, but we really don't recruit that pure guard. Every now and then you'll see the kid at Austintown Fitch we're going to talk about as a sophomore is one of those big guys that kind of, grizzly bears you. So I think we bring in more tackles with feet. Sure. And I think once you get on campus and they add weight and they change and they shift shape or whatever, whoever has the best feet then kind of stays the tackle. And okay, we have a starting guard job available. Who's coming down to fill it? Is it Jake Cook? Is it Landry? And these guys can do that. So it's not a knock. And I'm trying to make that point that, he could be the one that goes to guard. Mark, do you think he's a guard or tackle? Sometimes I think that question is laced with, do you think he's good or bad? Do you think he's an athlete or not?
Right. It's a downgrade.
Yeah, exactly. It's like a backhanded compliment. Like, you're a really good guard, but you're not good enough to play tackle.
You know why I think that happens, Mark? Look, you're not going to have a guard get picked first in the draft. Okay. You could have a left tackle get picked first in the draft. There's just a trickle down from that. Look, man, guards are tremendously valuable. Speaking from I follow a pro team that picked one, I think 11th or 12th overall this year. So it's good work if you can get it.
We have a little bit of video of him from when I went to see him, just like Garrick. He puts on a show. He really when he's playing high school kids, his size and strength, he's being a grizzly bear. Yeah, it's funny. I'm sorry I did that imitation. I hope that doesn't get clipped.
I thought it was funny, and I didn't know if anyone else picked up on it. Of course, Asian Pastorine.
It kind of made me think of that American Pie sequel when they go into the bar and that guy's like, "Oh, you're like a grizzly bear," and it's kind of funny. I don't know how many people will pick up on that reference, but boy, I mean,
not much of a sequel, but we'll go with it.
Yeah, the grizzly bear. I mean, Landry's that type of guy. He's got those big meat hooks that when they latch on, gets up the linebackers. There's a reason why he's an Ohio State kid right now. I'm happy this was an offer that finally has come to a fruition. I mean, it's been debated for the last couple of weeks. I know Garrick's probably been driven insane. The people up there I know in Menor told me that Landry really did have a relationship with those NC State guys, and it tells you what a human he is when that tugs on your heartstrings, that you gave him your heart, your commitment, and you don't want to break that, and even the money doesn't want you to break that. So that was a real thing, and it just alludes to the person he is.
Also, if you're wondering if the draw to Ohio State is still there, yes, it just takes a circuitous route now that sometimes maybe it wouldn't have. I'll tell you this, back in the day, on the day I'll qualify as pre-NIL, I don't think he ever would have committed to NC State in the first place. They just made him a priority and rolled out the what color? They're kind of red. They're red carpet there. So we move on now to, boy, it's good to be king. Here's what it's not good to be. Penn State. I've heard everyone say this. I just want to echo this. I follow sports more than I should have and have my whole life. I have never seen something crumble this quickly. You're talking about 2 weeks ago. I saw an interview pregame with James Franklin where he said, this is going to be the greatest atmosphere in the history of college football for Oregon at Penn State. And then there was a part of that game at the end where I thought they were going to win. Then Drew Aller throws that interception. And I'll say, going back, I didn't see the safety either. Less implications for me personally. And since then, it is like they must have been built on a more rickety foundation than we thought, because you really can't go from national champion to fired in 2 weeks unless there were some cracks in the foundation, as it were. But we digress. Now what we're doing is going after their recruits. One thing that was not timed great by Penn State. Now, there was a time when Pennsylvania was one of your 5 or 6 best states for football talent. It's not anymore, but they're having a great year coming up. And wouldn't you know, now they're not going to probably get as many of them. Garrick is going to let you know the guys that Ohio State will now kind of dial in on. There are some very interesting names, some very talented people that they were in the mix for. So please bring us up to speed, Garrick.
So a bit of a disclaimer before we get to the good stuff, as Dan would call it. I don't think there's going to be a whole lot of aggression on their 2026 commits.
Right.
There are some guys they've had some ties to. Jackson Ford, a defensive end out of Pennsylvania. He took an official visit to Ohio State. He was the only one in the entire 26 class to take an official visit to Ohio State. So if they were going to go after a guy, I feel like it might be him. But even then, I think they're more after a guy like Dre Quinn, who's going to take his second visit and official visit to Ohio State in November. I think he's probably higher on their board right now. And then Elijah Littlejohn, there were some productive conversations between he and James Laurinaitis in the summer, but I think those have kind of since faded. I know guys in the chat have been asking about Jaden Williams. That's another example of it's not as easy to flip an Ohio kid as it used to be. And by the way, the team he's currently committed to, Indiana, pretty damn good right now, and just got a pretty good statement win. Not that Ohio State's going to stop trying, and not that they don't have a chance in that one, but I think he would be higher on the pecking order than him right now. So the real interesting thing with Penn State is their 2027 class, and I really can't even say their 2027 class anymore because their entire 2027 class evaporated overnight. Within a few hours of James Franklin's firing, all of their commits decommitted, every single one of them. Now, there were 4 as of Friday, and Khalil Taylor, a wide receiver, a guy we'll talk about in just a second here, he decommitted 2 days before James Franklin even got fired. He saw, the tire fire situation that was boiling in Penn State and decided to just go ahead and pull the trigger early. But there are 3 guys in the 2027 class that I'm keeping an eye on. And the first one that's probably the juiciest is Keemon Spell, running back out of Pennsylvania, 5'9", 205-pound bowling ball, draws comparisons to Blake Corum. So I think that's an interesting comp there. Visited for the Texas game season opener. They're trying to get him back on a visit. Maybe it'll happen November 1st, maybe not. We'll just have to see how that develops. But in terms of 2027 running back recruiting, it's no secret that Ohio State's top target is David Gabriel Georges. But if I were going to put a number 2 on the board, I would put Mr. Spell number 2. And just because they really like David Gabriel Georges doesn't mean they don't like Spell. And the fact that they're pushing to get him on campus for a second visit, and especially now that his recruitment's wide open. And let's be clear, Ohio State isn't the only guy that's going to go after him. He's going to have a lot of big names and blue bloods after this guy. I mean, he's the number 1 rated running back per 24/7 Sports in the cycle, right? But I'm interested to see how things develop there. I'm also really excited about the whole running back storyline for Ohio State 2027, because this is just me feeling personally, a gut feeling. I think they're going to go big at the position in 2027. I think between David Gabriel Georges and Spell, they have 2 guys that they really like a lot, and ones that they'll could be close to top of the market for lack of a better term. So I think that those situations are going to be really fun to monitor, and I have a feeling that they're going to do everything they can to land at least one of those guys, right? Now, the other one that's pretty interesting is Leighton Von Brandt. He's a 5-star offensive tackle that we didn't really pay attention to a whole lot. I mean, he got offered by Ohio State. He committed to Penn State pretty early, but now things are wide open, right? It's a kid out of Delaware. He's a great defensive end. He's a great offensive tackle. I think they'll really try to nurture and start developing that relationship even stronger now. Obviously, you never say no to 5-star offensive linemen, right? Ohio State fans have been harping on the desire for those, and now they're going to have a chance to get back in the thick of things with one. And then the one we mentioned previously, Khalil Taylor, I reached out to him on Friday once he decommitted, because I know that he and Ohio State had been having some talks, and he did confirm with me that he will be there November 1st for the Penn State game. And this was before James Franklin even got fired. Now, he hasn't gotten offered by Ohio State yet. That could change November 1st. I have him on definitive offer watch for sure. Top 70 prospect in that class, really talented playmaker. And I don't know if you've heard, Dan and Mark, but Ohio State hasn't had a problem recruiting really good wide receivers to Columbus last I checked. So that'll be fun to watch. But, yeah, I wouldn't get too excited about any Penn State commitment in 2026. That could change, of course. Recruiting is very fluid in this day. But as of right now, I don't sense a deep desire to really go after any of those guys. We'll see how other flip situations pan out, and maybe that'll change. But 2027, at least their former 2027 class, is the one I would really keep my eye on.
Mark, let's talk about Keemon Spell. I know we're all super high on David Gabriel Georges, and we were talking before the show about the potential, ramifications of Bo Jackson being this good this early. If you're talking salary cap life, do you really want to go overboard on another running back in 26? Speaking for myself, I would not. I also am a big on Isaiah West, by the way. So I don't think you can bring in a back that would be better than Isaiah West next year as a backup at the cost. So we'll see. But Keemon Spell and David Gabriel Georges, your thoughts? Because that's really what we're talking about here.
Yeah, I like your logic with, you just can't keep stacking first-round picks on top of first-round picks and think that something's not going to give. So when you do highlights on Huddle, it's sort of like a game-by-game thing, and this isn't like your best 25 plays from the years, and Spell's highlights are game-by-game. So I was checking them out, and it's pretty incredible. I'm going to go to a longer highlight of his here so we can see a little more on him. But there's even a fumble on one of these plays. After 3 plays, I was no longer like, Gabriel Georges who? Like, what? Like, there are so many talented kids in America. We can't get hung up on just
running back too, man.
Yeah, running back. So if this kid is a year spaced out, I would really love to make him the target. Like, he is so smooth. There's a run coming up here. and I don't know why like these visions kind of flash like comps, but like he almost looked like a Fred Taylor or like an Edgerrin James. Like there's just a smoothness, like where, wow, is he really that big, moving that fast, that cut there, and just the acceleration. I mean, you'll be fine if this was your 1B or 1A and 1B. So I feel bad for Penn State. I mean, if you're going to start losing these type of players and have to go replace them with true B players or C players, I think this might be the one where he fumbles. But the explosive speed there, the size is there. I'm sure. If
I like the fact that it's on film.
Yeah, I mean, this is a game-by-game cut-up. I don't think this was meant to be viewed by a podcast. I think it was, when the coaches watch huddle, they tag the player that got the ball. Sure. So I'm sure these are all the tags from that game for him. And he did. Why would he put together a highlight film? He's in the middle of his season right now. He's committed to Penn State. Only a true nerdy podcast would dive into his highlights and start breaking them down. So
yeah, he can.
It's obvious his talent, even in this type of a breakdown, that you can tell that, it's very smooth, silky smooth. Just you get the feel like the cuts look effortless. The explosion and leg strength is there. Ohio State, it's good to be the king.
Yeah, we can't go wrong with either dude there. But look, it doesn't hurt. Let's just talk business. That might give Ohio State a little bit of leverage with DGG. Who knows? I don't know that to be the case, but if you're bidding on 2 rather than 1, there's an art to that. So we shall see. I knew this question was going to come up. I should have addressed this. Chaz Coleman, the defensive end who was, I think in high school was more of like an athlete type. I know he played some quarterback.
Yep. He
really emerged late in his high school career. In Ohio, I guess the one thing that makes it a challenge for the Buckeyes is if you emerge really late, they've got to be in on so many other great players that maybe that's how a guy slips through the cracks. And unfortunately, I don't think Penn State, now we can do it now, but had Franklin still been there, if a guy goes to Penn State, I think it's going to be pretty hard to then flip him to Ohio State unless someone gets fired. Your thoughts on Chaz Coleman, both of you, Garrick can take it first. If you think they'll be interested, obviously Chaz Coleman is not in the transfer portal. Now, I'm under no obligation to not say that or say it, but just for potential, just understanding what's going on here. He has not entered the transfer portal. The next questions are, can people leave right away? I do not believe so. There's a 15-day wait after they hire a new coach. They're not going to hire a full-time coach during the season. We know that. So I want to make sure we're not tampering here on any tangential level. But Chaz Coleman, your thoughts in general, Garrick, and then Mark.
Well, your first question is very easy to answer, Dan. Would they be interested? Yes. Next question. I'm just kidding. But Chaz, like you said, kind of slipped through the cracks, and there's a lot of midseason all-freshman teams out there, and he's on a lot of them.
Yeah.
Regarding Chaz, I think and you already did a lot of the but stuff, so let me just add a few more and just it's not cold water. It's just let's give it a little bit to play out first. The NCAA just changed the rule to where, normally when a coach gets fired, all players have a 30-day portal window that opens immediately. They can transfer. Now it's been changed to, 5 days after a new coach is hired, you have a 15-day transfer window. So, it's taken me a little bit to get used to that too. I had people on the board that are like, well, can they transfer right now? Can Chaz transfer to Ohio State right now?
Can he play against Indiana?
Yeah, no. Big Ten championship game? Doesn't work that way, right? And it is kind of interesting that the previous players on, the UCLAs and all those guys that already had coaches fired, they're grandfathered in, right? So the 30-day transfer window still applies to them if their coach just got fired. But that rule passed, I think it was last week, so before James Franklin ended up getting fired from Penn State. So even if he wanted to, Chaz and whoever else could not enter the transfer portal because of the coaching rule until 5 days after a new coach is hired, and then they'll have a 15-day window. Of course, they could also just enter the transfer portal when everybody else does in January anyway. That option will be open to them as well. But, yes, I think they would absolutely have interest. also thought like you, Dan. I was like, oh, this guy might be the one that got away, right? Because there was a ton of fall camp buzz about him. And obviously, Penn State has a lot of great defensive ends up there, a lot of great defensive linemen. And yet Chaz Coleman was already fighting for playing time and has earned a lot, has made a lot of impact plays already as a true freshman. If he makes it to the transfer portal, I would definitely put Ohio State as a top contender for him. But like I mentioned, long way to go here.
We've had success in the past with falling short in a recruitment and getting a guy after his freshman year when his coach left. His name is Caleb Downs, but I digress. Mark, your thoughts on Mr. Coleman?
Yeah, him playing quarterback really hit him in the recruiting process. Like he was maybe a MAC offer guy junior year, based on, oh, we'll take him. And I remember when he worked out at Ohio State, and I'm talking Chaz Coleman, he worked out as a tight end.
Yeah.
Worked out as a tight end. It was quarterback
to tight end. From offense. You know what I mean?
The conversion from offense was
the first. Tight end, and then they're like, no, get out there and rush the passer.
If Warren Harding didn't have a need for a defensive end and someone on that staff didn't say, hey, you know who could probably do that if you gave him a chance and put his hand in the dirt, if he was a willing participant, and of course he was. In that film, I remember watching on the podcast, he had rockets in his shoes. Like, he's got the Arvell Reese, Sonny Styles body, that long 6'5" CJ Hicks body. That's coveted. And for him to jump on that field that fast at Penn State after literally making the conversion from quarterback, that's a player when, like you said, Dan, when you can get one like Igbinosun for a couple of years, when you get them when they're, young and you can really take advantage of it, these are the high priority, fire some money to the middle of the table type guys. So, really, I know it's probably not to a Penn State's advantage to hire a coach, so these kids can't start leaving, but you better hire someone with a name so they don't start leaving. You better bring in, the next second coming of the savior to stop this bleeding, or everything that was built there, and it might not be good enough right now, but you're going to look like a rebuild. Ask Alabama.
Yeah. I think Penn State's in real trouble when it comes to that.
I don't know if they thought that totally through.
Well, I'm sure they did, because if you go look at some of the look, everyone, when these things happen, and the amount of podcasts and media outlets and people with a microphone and social media now is infinite. But there's talk that they've had to pay out $56 million to Franklin individually. And then when you take into account the staff, it's over $100 million, which I digress. I got a question for you guys. This is something I think people may enjoy. Who made a better decision? Bo Atkinson when he transferred from North Carolina to Ohio State, or Ryan Day when he replaced Jim Knowles with Matt Patricia?
I'll take that one. I'm going to go absolutely Bo Atkinson. Not even close. And I say that while fully acknowledging that Matt Patricia has been a mad scientist and a defensive savant, and is a huge part of the reason why Ohio State is the number one team in the country right now. There are probably other guys that they could have hired that could have put together a damn good defense. Bo, if he stayed at North Carolina, there is no anything for him right now. It's just, how can I get out of here? What the hell happened to me? My stock is far less than it used to be, and now he gets to play on the number one team in America and play a pretty pivotal role on that team. So in terms of who made the better decision, 100% Bo Atkinson, because there are other ways, if they didn't hire Matt Patricia, that this could have been salvaged. If Bo didn't leave North Carolina, there is nothing he could have done for himself.
He literally got pulled from a dumpster fire into the penthouse and got paid more, because if you read about it, one of the reasons he left is they lowballed him. Good move. Mark, your thoughts?
We can't do Coach Knowles like that. He did us a solid last year. We got a national championship with him. We can't make him like that was thing. But Matt Patricia, when we watch this breakdown, he is a prize. I mean, I never play the same play twice on the Buckeye in the sky. I try to do it all in one fail, slow motion swoop. Here's what's going on here. And it all sequences it in. there is so much going on with the defensive line on each play and the personnel and who's coming or going that you have to watch that in slow motion. But then there's so much going on with the secondary and the rotation. It's like two levels of synchronicity that are constantly changing and evolving in an amoeba. And I don't know how high school or college quarterbacks could process this in 2.5 seconds by the time they get to the top of their drop. It takes me 10 minutes, slow motion, rewind, arrows. It's 2 shots at it. Matt Patricia is really the mad scientist.
And we will get to that video. Last thing, Mark, the new quarterback at Penn State will be Ethan Grunkenmeyer, a neighbor of the dean from Olentangy. Now, that makes it very interesting. Obviously, it's interesting because Drew Aller, also a fine Ohioan from Medina. Ethan Grunkenmeyer, your thoughts, what Ohio State will be facing in a few weeks?
Yeah, well, we know he can take a shot because when he came in, he took a shot.
He did.
He did everything he could to run that ball in the last play, but he really isn't a very repped-up college quarterback. I mean, he hasn't got a lot of backup time or a lot of throws in, so to say, so it's going to be pure inexperience or whatever he gets under his belt initially. In high school, he had one of those late rises. His mom, I believe, was a college basketball player at Ohio State. So he had a basketball build thin early on, but as he got in the weight room his junior year, that ball started zipping out, and the height was there and the athletic ability, and he put together a great season. And of course, he ended up at Penn State. He goes to the same quarterback trainer as Drew Aller, Brad Melander up in Cleveland. They teach the rotational throwing style.
No coincidence.
Yeah, they come out of the same style. So that the quarterback coaches there is familiar with that type of player. I'm as interested as anybody to see how Hunter does because he does snap it off, and he's a little more athletic than Drew or Aller. So you'll see maybe a little more run here. I like to see how much more bulk he has on his body. That shot he took, I mean, he's got something to him now because in high school he was like 170 pounds, I felt like forever, and then all of a sudden you saw the body develop. But, yeah, thinner kids like that.
Welcome to college football.
Welcome. It was a baptism, by 2 big-time linebackers. But, I don't know. I'm rooting for the Ohio kids. I'm rooting for Drew, too. I hate to see a kid go out like that. You wonder if he's one of those guys, you see it in the NFL. Sam Darnold looks amazing, up there and these other places. And same with Daniel Jones and same with quarterbacks. It takes a little time. This position, they fired his offensive coordinator last year, so because he's an Ohio kid, I always give them a little more, leeway, and I root for them a little bit. So I wish Drew and his family the best. To see his story come up from the high school, no one wants to see their career, and if he got a red shirt and came back, boy, he'd be the highest paid quarterback in college football. I'm sure someone would take him and rebuild him. They'd sell him on the story that, hey, if you come here, I'm the quarterback whisperer. I'll have you back in the first round by the end of next year, buddy.
I'm not sure about that. I think he's better off probably now just going to the NFL, hoping he gets picked by a team who's good at developing quarterbacks.
Like the Indiana kid that went to the 49ers, go somewhere and have a little chance to learn for a while. Baker Mayfield got the Panthers cut him and then drafted Bryce Young. Good move. Keep picking guys smaller than my youngest child. That's why I'm not pretending to. I'm not going to drop the axe on that kid the way I've seen publicly people drop the axe on him. Yeah, it's ugly. There were some ugly things on tape, but I can show you a lot of ugly from those quarterbacks we just mentioned, and now they're sitting on top of the and it's system guys, it's O-line, it's receivers, it's the teaching of it, it's the play calling. It is having a quarterback son. It's not as much about the quarterback as those other things. It's a confluence of your whole team, and the quarterbacks usually the adages, they get too much credit and they get too much blame.
Well, here's what I'd say about Penn State. It's not realistic to beat Ohio State if you don't have any receiver that would make the team. How about that? Think about that for a second. They have not put a receiver out there that would make Ohio State's roster. They tried to do it this year.
Julian Fleming was their best crack at it.
That's another story in and of itself. But I mean, Trevor Pena and the other guys they brought in this year, those guys, if they transferred to Ohio State, they'd be getting water for people. They're They're not that caliber of
Seems
players.
this kid was from Kent State. I mean, they've been taking everybody else's receivers trying to turn them into.
That's not realistic. And that's, as a quarterback, it helps to have receivers who are good. This just in. So I don't get that. What else do we have to go here? I think there were some other good questions up here. Let's get to it. There's a lot of talk about Brian Hartline possibly going to Penn State. Man, I do not see that happening. For a variety of reasons, logistics and otherwise. But yeah, I don't see that. Let's get
and you
to
know what?
It's
unpopular to say it. If I'm Penn State, that's the type of guy I want. Like the younger guy that's proven. I mean, and it hurts. People are gonna. I already got crucified last week for saying something stupid. This may be clipped for something stupider, but Brian Hartline is. We can't just think that he's never going to be a head coach somewhere, and he should be the head coach at Ohio State someday. But and you think his loyalty would have him stay here and wait in the balance until that day's right, but he deserves a job like a Penn State or a Notre Dame or that type of thing, and that's a compliment to him and who he is as a classy human being recruiter. His day of this type of ilk is coming, and we all want to delete this clip so he doesn't hear that and he just hangs around here.
I'll tell you what, it's a little bit different. It's a little bit different with Hartline just because of his financial independence from playing football at the highest level. And then he's got children. And that when Mark will tell you this, and I can too, once your kids get into sports, high school ages, I don't know how old Hartline's kids are, but they don't want to deal with that. But we shall see. I'm just not, I don't even want to put my mind in that spot because then I would probably need some counseling, and I don't really want to do that right now. But let's get up the stuff I don't need counseling for, and that's watching the Buckeyes play football. Let's go a few plays of Buckeye in the Sky, Ohio State versus Illinois. It was a game for about however long the ball's in the air for the opening kickoff.
Okay, so, we're trying to identify, this is Illinois on defense. They're 4-man rush, very standard rush, but what are they doing behind it? Why would you play man-to-man against Ohio State? I'm sorry if I pause that. You can't see the two safeties over the top, so this is 2-man. You're going to try to put someone in everybody's face, and then you have help over the top. Bottom of the screen, trips. If you notice, none of those routes go across the field. So at the top of the field, you have Jeremiah Smith and a running back. Might be easier to read that side and do the one-on-one with Jeremiah Smith. That flat route's going to take the linebacker out, which is going to leave a dead area. Just run a route with Jeremiah Smith to get to the dead area, and an 8th grader is going to be able to complete this type of stuff. Sayin does a good job of looking the other side, but the route combination sets up the void. I mean, this is schemed up perfectly. The man-to-man coverage is there, and then Jeremiah Smith, when he snaps it off, that's either boxing a guy out, but the separation was 5 yards on that.
That's some placement, though.
Yeah, even if you just box him out and give the quarterback something to throw to, that's acceptable on that route. He's like, no, I'll give you a 5-yard window, and then I'll go take it, a little farther. Okay. Ohio State on defense is really getting complex. Like, it's really taken me some time to digest everything and look at it. So cover 2, probably because those corners are up, but it's a soft cover 2. 3-man rush, that's what you know. You 3 guys with their hand in the dirt. So the knowns are those 2 things. Now you look at this personnel, and I'll pause it here for a second. I paused it. Peyton Pierce is your middle linebacker, but weren't Sonny Styles and Arvell Reese your middle linebackers? Now they're defensive ends. Now they're outside linebackers. Okay, so you're giving these guys multiple skill sets, and then you see Jermaine Matthews, of course, there is the slot corner. Now Caleb Downs is, you see the even safety, so the cover 2 look is now turning to cover 3 at the snap of the ball. So you have guys playing out of positions. You have a different look that you've ever seen. It's only a 5-man box. Robber coming down at the snap of the ball from cover 2 to cover 3. I just talked for a minute, and that's the pre-snap. Now Styles, he's dropping back in the pass coverage. Reese is coming. You got to process that. It just went from cover 2 to man. Quarterback does a good job of just maybe trying to jam this slant in there and say, okay, this got kind of confusing here. And you'll see that the coverage here by Matthews and these long arms of these 6-something corners, there it is. That's what you just bought, the extra 4 or 5 inches in hand length that reaches around and Of course, you love when it goes right to the guy, Johnny on the spot, I call it. Curry, we've turned him into a stand-up outside linebacker. Let's just call that what it is. He hasn't had his hand in the dirt very many times. Sam, Mike, and Will, but Sam is a corner, your safety, Jalen McClain, okay? Again, man-to-man cover one. Because you're blitzing, you have to play cover one. You're basically losing your safety. But the guy coming off the edge here being a safety, you wouldn't think he'd be run tough. You think, tackle versus safety. This is a pancake. I mean, these guys they're not only schemed up, but they're making plays. He just blew up a tackle, ran right through him.
You can't beat another team if that talent is like that, though.
I mean, that scheme should have won for Illinois. We have a tackle on the point of attack on a safety. It should be a 300-pounder on a 200-pounder. We win. Okay, 4-man rush out of Illinois here. They're playing a little different coverage with their Sam or nickel kind of hanging out back there, not the true position. Cover 4 over the top. Pretty simple thing to read for Ohio State. The backside flat in cover 4, which is this area up in here, is always open. So how do you get to that area in different ways? Well, they choose to run off that backside corner and create the void. And when you have Jeremiah Smith or a great receiver, you know they're going to run off. Tight end.
You also know, hold on a second. You also know he's not thinking about anything other than Jeremiah Smith.
Exactly. So you use those logical things against it. Tight end out here with nobody to block, simple pass, and just saying did a great job of staring down the middle and not giving that away. I mean, there you go. One block to the end zone. I mean, you drew up a scheme where you needed one block to get in the end zone. I mean, did these coaches get a raise?
Yes.
So they really have the talent and the schemes, and they're not afraid to pull the trigger on things, and Matt Patricia, the more his legend grows, the more he's going to get into his bag and go outside the box and try things. I watched the podcast, and this is a little digression in the Patricia, but he was dealing with Brady every day at practice, and Vrabel was on his defense. And there's like this famous thing where Vrabel wanted to screw with Brady all the time. And so did Patricia, and they wanted to give him hell. And they asked Brady, what did they do to you? He goes, they used to piss me off and drop 9 inside like the 10-yard line, meaning send 2 pass rushers and drop everyone else into the end zone. And I couldn't find anybody to throw because there's 9 guys in the end zone. And Brady used to be pissed. No one's ever going to do that. That's BS. You guys can't make up stupid defenses. Guess what? The guy who was making up stupid defenses to drive one of the best insane is drawing up our defenses every week. And some of those stupid defenses that he was just playing with in the dirt, he has the freedom in his mind to do that type of stuff. Drop 9? Who does that? Well, if you want to piss off Tom Brady, keep doing it. Okay. And I see these type of things where he's killing these college quarterbacks right now. There's just not enough time in the day for these guys to. If I'm a college quarterback and I watch just the Buckeye in the sky, I sit there with my hands on my head going, oh boy, call some three-step stuff, make it easy on me. Do not get me into complex reads with this.
I got 2 pieces of good news. 1, Tom Brady not walking through that door. So I think we're in good shape there in terms of the opposition.
You say that now.
There is a transfer portal, so who knows? I don't know if Brady has any eligibility left. I certainly hope not. And the other good news is we will be back on Thursday with more tomfoolery and hijinks. Definitely appreciate you guys stopping by. I would keep following recruiting. That's all I'll say. Have a good one. Nutters.